Okay, guys, you need handout 1 either printed out or available to you via PDF. It is on Blackboard. So grab that and pencil or stylus or whatever you want to use to annotate, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, I turned off the video for my little thumbnail because it tends to get in the way and I don't realize it till I go and edit the video afterwards. And also, you absolutely don't need to see my face to make this work. So lesson 1, video 1, Pentatonic Collections. This is our smallest collection that we'll be dealing with. And by the name, you can probably guess how many notes it has. Penta meaning 5. The pentatonic collection is a 5-note collection that complements the diatonic collection. Now, notice this is not a typo, complements with an E. That just simply means it fills in the gaps. So if you think of the diatonic collection as the 7 white keys on the piano, C major scale, if you will. The 5 notes that I did not touch in playing that scale happen to be the 5 black keys on the piano. That is our pentatonic collection. So it is the 5 notes that the diatonic collection skips. Now combined, these two collections form what we call the aggregate. And that's a word that you're going to see a lot this semester. And all that means is the combination of all 12 chromatic pitches. So the aggregate is the entire chromatic system, C to B hitting every note on the way up. The diatonic collection plus the pentatonic collection make the aggregate. So let's go ahead and write out one of the pentatonic collections. And we will do the one that involves all 5 black keys on the piano. Let's start on D flat and let's use all flats as we write this collection out. So we're going to start on D flat. Our next black key on the piano is E flat. And then going up, we've got G flat, and then A flat, and B flat. So taking a look at that, let's go through and label the intervals. So D flat to E flat gives us major second. E flat to G flat, minor third. We have a couple more major seconds. And then I'm going to complete the octave up here, just so we can get that last interval, which is another minor third. So looking at that, from step to step, we only encounter major seconds and minor thirds. That actually has some pretty important implications for the other intervals contained in this collection. So let's look at some of the kind of wider intervals we encounter. Let's go D flat to G flat. That gives us a perfect fourth. What if we go D flat to A flat? That gives us a perfect fifth. How about if we go E flat, the second note, to A flat, the fourth pitch? E flat to A flat gives us a perfect fourth. And how about we go E flat to the fourth note, or the fifth note, sorry. That gives us E flat, B flat, perfect. Fifth. Now let's fill in a couple more gaps. D flat to B flat. Sorry, I was about to get real crowded and maybe a little unneat. D flat to B flat gives us a major sixth. How about E flat all the way up to the octave D flat? That gives us a really lovely minor seventh. And we've got, G flat to B flat gives us a major third. Now, I could keep going. There are a couple more left. But looking at that kind of intervallic inventory, and if we were to keep going and complete the whole thing, you would find that we are lacking a particular interval quality, or a pair of interval qualities, actually, we will end up with a lot of major intervals, a lot of minor intervals, a ton of perfect intervals. But what we will not get are any diminished or augmented intervals. Put, I guess, a bit more simply, this collection is missing a tritone. Now, that might seem like just kind of a semantic piece of knowledge, but listen to this collection again. There is a certain quality to the pentatonic collection, a certain kind of mellowness and even stability to the pentatonic kind of sound. Now, you might even be thinking, well, that sounds sort of familiar. I feel like I've heard things that are pentatonic before. A lot of folk music utilizes the pentatonic collection. So that kind of might be what you're hearing or what sounds familiar. But think about what the tritone does in a diatonic collection. Think about a major and minor collection. The tritone, we call that our key determining interval. That's why your 5/7 is so important. It has the tritone. It wants to go somewhere. Tritones are wildly unstable, right? Diminished intervals, they want to resolve. Augmented intervals want to resolve. Your tritone wants to go somewhere. When we remove that from the equation, and all of a sudden we have this collection that has no tritone in it, it feels very sort of calm. There's no tension in there. There's no real need for resolution in the way that a tritone needs to move. So, keeping that kind of in the back of our minds, let's take a look at this next little paragraph of information. Your pentatonic collection can actually sound major or minor, and there are lots of factors that will go into that. One of the important ones being this idea of pitch centricity, your centric pitch. And that's the note that the music emphasizes and asserts to us as listeners that it is most important. Now, in tonal music, we call that tonic, and I'll probably still refer to it as tonic in some ways when we're discussing these examples. But your centric pitch is it's your most important note. And the music will signal that to us in a variety of different ways. Now we're going to listen to two excerpts from Florence Price's First Symphony. And this first excerpt is from the third movement. It goes by really quickly, so I'm going to play it for you twice. And I want you to think about whether this excerpt sounds major or minor to you and what factors are contributing to that decision. I told you it was short. I'll play it one more time. Okay. Now, I know I don't have you like in real time right in front of me, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we probably all agree that this excerpt has a pretty distinctive major sound. Now, what factors contribute to that? And also, who do you think the centric pitch is? So let's look at what we have. So you've got a reduction in front of you, obviously, but the most important parts have been extracted and laid out for you. Now, I want you to think about who the centric pitch is for you in this excerpt. And I will tell you mine, and hopefully we have the same answer. But I am going to quite comfortably say that this is a C tonic or C centric excerpt. Now, what factors contribute to that? For me, a big one is the melody. We have this melody that really seems to focus on C at its cadential point, especially. Even if we look at the contour of the melody, C is our highest pitch. It's also our lowest pitch. So the melody is framed on either side by these C's. And at the very end, we get this cadential type melodic figure. Now, when we hear and think of cadences in melodies and tonal music, a lot of times we get 1/7/1 or 1/2/1. Here we get something a little bit different. If we're calling C1, this would be, I guess, a 1-6-1, right? Cadential figure. So not a cadence exactly like we might expect melodically, but we are still really asserting C as the kind of most important note in this. Now, some of you might be looking at the bass line and saying, well, that looks familiar to me. That looks like something I maybe even might see in, say, a piece of tonal music. And part of that, I think, is these pairs, these rising fourths that keep happening look a whole lot like 5-1 action, right? And it seems like, especially if we take meter into account, we keep landing on these Cs on our downbeats. So again, emphasizing the C centricity, the idea of C being tonic via meter, via melody, this kind of cadential figure here. So C centricity with this major sound. Let's take a look at what we have going on in the second system. So the second line, sorry, that's the melody in the brass. I'm going to do a little kind of pitch inventory there. So we have C's and A's, we have an E, a G, and a D. So there is our entire collection. There are only 5 notes that occur in this second line. And they are all contained, within the C pentatonic system. We've got C, D, E, G, and A. There's one really important note that happens, and it's important because it is not in the pentatonic system. So when we're talking about dealing with pentatonic collections, it doesn't mean that all the other 7 notes are forbidden. It just means that when they do happen, they are likely there for a very distinctive purpose. Similar, it's the same as when we use chromatic notes in a piece of tonal music, right? Chromatic pitches are there, they draw our attention, and they're placed there for that specific purpose, to draw attention, to signal something. Now, if I'm looking at this bass line, I see this fat F right there. You can't miss it, right? We've been plunking along kind of 1, 5, and 3 for these first few measures. And then all of a sudden we sit on this note that is not a part of the pentatonic collection. What is it doing there? So as we look, and we do not have to abandon tonal harmony just because we are using collections. If we think about this, we've been prolonging tonic for a while, right? If we're saying C is tonic, if you were in a tonal piece of music and you see an F in the bass, what is that likely going to signal to you? Music theory 1 through 3, probably telling you we have moved to the predominant. And then we go back to tonic here and we mosey around and prolong that a little bit until we cadence at the end. But that F in the bass, that pitch that is not part of the pentatonic collection, is there to sort of budge the harmonic movement forward, right? So let's go back to these prompts really quickly. What elements in that excerpt gave us clues to the centric pitch? We talked about melody. We talked about cadence. We talked about the kind of 5-1 in the bass. And we also talked about meter. And then that F that is outside of the pentatonic collection, it is used in this instance to introduce just a little bit of motion, a little bit of harmonic motion. Okay, excerpt 2. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to play it for you. This one's slower, so I'm just going to play it for you once. And I want to know if you feel major or minor from it. Again, I'm going to go on a limb and say that we probably agree. This has a really lovely, distinctive minor feel. Who's tonic? Who's the centric pitch? Looking at, for me, the cello and bass line is really indicative because we sit on this E for quite some time. And also, we do have a key signature, and that key signature tells us something, right? So I'm going to go with a nice E tonic here. As you listen to that bassoon melody, one thing that is characteristic of it is that very opening, 1/7, that's not your leading tone 7, right? Most of the time in minor, we're listening for and looking for that raised leading tone, but we are using regular scale degree 7 there, and that does have a pretty profound impact on the melody itself, where it seems to be directed and the level of consonance versus dissonance. Now, I'm going to play the first 3 measures of the melody as it's written first. And now I'm going to play it with the raised leading tone. So I'm going to put sharps on all of those Ds. Now, it probably sounds terrible because you heard it the other way first, but how profoundly does that D sharp affect the feel of that melody? All of a sudden, especially the second measure. Here's the second measure. 3 down to 7 is a wildly dissonant interval. And that's something that in theory 1 through 3, we told you to never do in voice leading in your part writing because it's so dissonant. So getting rid of that D sharp, getting rid of the raised leading tone and leaving it as a natural 7, again, it sort of infuses the sound with a little bit more calm, a little bit more stability. There's less tension, less sort of need for resolution. However, probably one of the more compelling parts of this excerpt are these 2 measures. I'm going to play it again, and I want you to just focus in, especially measure 6. There's a ritardando there too, but I want you to focus in on those 2 measures in particular and how they feel to you. Okay, so let's talk about those particular measures. Now, where I just stopped the recording, I'm guessing that it felt pretty unstable to you. If I were to ask you to kind of map out the phrases here, you would likely say that there is a kind of incomplete cadential moment right here, right? Almost feels maybe half cadency, which would make sense. We have scale degree 5s on either side, right? But another thing that kind of lends itself to that instability is that the melody feels unfinished. We've been here. That note wants to go there. We feel that tension, right? That F sharp really, really kind of drags us, makes us want to go back down to the E. Now, that is sort of melody 101, right? If we're saying the E is scale degree 1, 2 always wants to go to 1, right? And that's why we feel that drive, that tension. But also, that F sharp is not part of the pentatonic collection. If we are building that collection from E, we've got E, and we can kind of take it from here if we want. E, G, A, B, and D. That's our pentatonic collection. The F sharp is not part of that. So it's there, and it's creating a ton of tension in the melody, creating this idea of forward motion, but it's also kind of an interloper. It's not really meant to be there as part of the collection. So I'm going to bring us back to these prompts again. So that time we have a member of the collection that creates a lot of tension. And that also sort of brings in the idea of forward motion. Now, last but not least, on the very last page of this handout, you've got some sort of fun facts slash quick and easy ways to build major and minor pentatonic scales. So I talked about how the pentatonic system has no tritone. You can find a pentatonic scale or build a pentatonic scale very easily by starting with a diatonic collection and then just getting rid of the tritone. So let's try it from the pitch B. Let's first build a major pentatonic scale from B. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is write out the entire major scale. Use accidentals for me. Don't use a key signature. So write out the B major scale to start. Now I'm going to have you go in and erase or delete the tritone. Your tritone in a major scale degrees 4 and 7. So I'm going to find scale degree 4, bloop, and scale degree 7, and get rid of them. What I'm left with then is the B major pentatonic scale. Get rid of the tritone. What is left is the pentatonic scale. Now let's do the same thing, but let's build a B minor pentatonic scale. So to start, you're going to write out the entire natural minor scale from B. And you are going to delete the tritone. In a minor scale, your tritone is between scale degrees 2 and 6. So I'm going to go in and get rid of scale degree 2 and get rid of scale degree 6. And what we have left is the B minor pentatonic scale. So those are two really quick and easy ways to extract the pentatonic scale from the diatonic system to which it's related. Now, the circle of fifths will actually help you build a pentatonic scale really easily. You just literally collect 5 notes that are next to each other. So let's say I'm going to start on, I don't know, B flat. And I'm just going to go in a circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that is a pentatonic collection. So, and you can do that from anywhere on the circle of fifths, as long as you have no gaps, as long as you just go in one direction and don't skip anybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a pentatonic collection. So you can use the circle of fifths to build your own pentatonic collection. And for those of you who might choose the composition route for the capstone project for this unit, that's a great tool. You want to build a pentatonic collection, and maybe you just want to make sure that it has a G flat and an A flat in it. Okay, so knowing that, okay, I want a G flat and an A flat in my pentatonic collection. That means I'm definitely going to have this guy too. So that gives you an idea of, okay, I could go this way, I could go this way, I could have one of each. It allows you to build your pentatonic collection without having to kind of figure it out note by note. And a last little PSA. Without any context, you don't know if that 5-note segment is major or minor. It's just a blob of 5 notes. You, as the composer or as the listener, you have the power to determine the centric pitch. So that as a listener, the music will tell you the centric pitch. As a composer, you get to determine the centric pitch. And that will give the listeners and give the music its own kind of major-ish or minor-ish sound. Now, in class on Friday, we're going to listen to a Debussy piece and talk about a piece that uses pentatonicism, and we're going to have a discussion about, is this major sound? Is it minor sound? Are you sure one way or the other? Because it's not always as clear as it was with our Florence Price excerpts that we listened to today. I'm back. There is no worksheet for this particular video lecture. The Pentatonic Collections will come up in a couple of worksheets from now. But that is it for this one. If you do choose to do a pre-listening for the Debussy, you can submit that by your class time on Friday. And in class on Friday, we will be continuing with this pentatonic discussion. If you have questions, either leave them in the comment section, I guess, since we're on YouTube and we can do that, or just like bring your questions to class. It's fine. And we'll use the first couple minutes of class on Friday to kind of talk about this, go over it, and answer any questions or concerns that you have. All right, guys, I will see you on Friday.